the Atlanta Hawks. Okay. Over under 46.5. There's a 47.5 over at plus 125 at PointsBet. So if you're leaning towards the over, you can find a plus 125, but you got to pay another win over at PointsBet. Brandon, let's start real simple here. What's your projection for the Atlanta Hawks?
So I have the Hawks winning 46 to 52 games. So right in the range that we're looking at, though the numbers we're at are on the low end of the projection there. I have Atlanta as the number 3 offense and number 18 defense, which is similar to what they were last year. Last year, the Hawks finished second offensively, previous season 8th offensively, but I have Atlanta improving on defense basically from bad to about average, close to average. So I know that's the thing we're going to talk about here. One of the things that I like on as I do my system is I come up with these similarities and look for, okay, so who else? If you finish about third on offense and 18th on defense, who does that look similar to in recent years? And I thought these two similarities were really fascinating, both from 2019. So we're back a few years, but the Portland Trail Blazers and the Houston Rockets. And those feel like really good comps to me. You got Dame and CJ, lots of offense, no defense. And then you had James Harden and Chris Paul and just enough defense to try to get by. You basically have these solid 50 to 55 win type teams that are capable of a run because the offense is that good, and offense is more important than defense. Defense is not half of the game. Offense is more. The Hawks should be great offensively. I think that their floor is pretty high because of that.
Okay, so is the over on this going to be a best bet for you?
The over is a best bet for me. I like the Hawks over. I like the Hawks division play. Atlanta, to me, is not the clear favorite in the division, but given where the number is at, is the clear play in the division for me.
What's the number on the division?
Just so I've got plus 190.
Plus 190. I think there's probably some value there. I put them in some parlays as far as my division. I do a lot of division parlays because I'm a degenerate. So let's start with this question. Dejante Murray is the key addition, obviously. They sent out a ton of stuff, especially draft picks, to get Dejante Murray. What's interesting is that they did not do what a lot of people expected them to do, which was to make more roster change. People were really convinced, like, okay, this is finally when they're going to trade John Collins. Nope, John Collins is still fucking there, still not traded. The lineup looks awesome. It's Trae Young, Dejante Murray, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Clint Capella, who's still there, despite, again, them actively looking to trade him and having several discussions. Onyeka Okongwu is off the bench. AJ Griffin off of the bench. Like, they have a lot of talent on this roster. They lose Danilo Gallinari, who, again, I've been trying to kind of explain to people, kind of not necessarily as good as their people have kind of talked like. Yeah. Is like not a huge loss there. Mo Harkless is banging around. We can't forget about Bogdan Bogdanovic, also, could wind up starting depending on what their rotations look like. This is a make or break it year for DeAndre Hunter. They add Justin Holiday, who's a really good player. They've got Aaron Holiday, who I like but hasn't done anything yet. Chris Silva is a very capable player. Like, they're deep. They have lots of talent. They add Jalen Johnson and AJ Griffin in the draft. The roster's really good, but at the center of it is Dejante Murray. What do you think about the Dejante Murray Trae Young fit in terms of winning NBA regular season basketball games?
I think it's a strong fit. Dejante Murray can really only help this team. Look, the last 2 years, the Hawks' expected win total was 45 and 47.8. And we basically took that team, didn't take away anything of big significance, in my opinion. You mentioned Gallinari, Kevin Huerter is gone, Lou Williams. Those might be additions by subtraction. Those 3 guys are terrible defenders. Dejante Murray is a good defender. He's not going to fix this defense on his own, but he's not just a good defender. He is an elite defender for a guard. And more importantly, because Trae Young is going to be doing everything offensively, Dejante Murray can put more of his energy into defense and really get after guys and be the lead perimeter defender there. And because Dejante Murray is around to handle some of the load offensively, Trae Young doesn't have to do quite everything like he has in the past. Maybe he'll even try every now and then, like once every 8th play on defense, once every 6th play, just a little effort from Trae Young. And it's amazing too. We see this a lot of times scouting college guys as they come to the pros. There are a lot of players who are elite engines for their team in college that are awful defensively. And then they get to the pros and it's like, oh, hey, you're actually okay. Why? Because you have a little bit of energy. You no longer have to do everything for your team. And that helps on defense. So I think Dejante Murray helps both ends. He's going to raise the floor defensively, just having someone at the point of attack. Also, key thing for this Atlanta team, they have never found in the last few years a backup for Trae Young. They've never found that other second guy to help run the bench unit, to help give Trae a bit of a rest. Dejante is that guy now. He's going to be able to, keep the engine decent, like keep the offense decent while he's rolling there. So I like the addition a lot. For me, Dejante would have been a third-team All-NBA pick last season. He was that good.
Wow.
He's not going to be that good for the Hawks because he's not going to have the ball as much. But I like what he adds on both ends. And I think, especially in the regular season, turning that defense from bad to almost average when you have an offense that should be this good is a big floor raiser in the regular season.
They were the most disappointing team last season to me. Of any team, they were the most disappointing. I had the over on them. I was heavy on the over. It was the best bet for me. And they completely and they couldn't explain it either. Like they were incapable of explaining why they couldn't get it together, why they couldn't win games, why they couldn't get stops. That does linger with me a little bit here. I don't believe that one player can fundamentally transform a defense. I especially don't believe it in a perimeter player. So if it's going to happen, it's going to have to be like a team-wide improvement. And I'm not sure they have the personnel. I don't know if Capella is there anymore. I really like DeAndre Hunter. I think John Collins is at right now, I would say there are possessions where he's really bad, and there's possessions where he's really good. The bad ones outweigh the good ones, I think, by about 1.15 possessions is about the split of it. There's very little in the middle where it's like he's fine. He's either really good or it's like, he just got cooked. The effort for me is there with John Collins. I think John Collins wants to win. Minimum 100 possessions last season as a pick and roll screener, like on the roll, either popping or rolling to the rim. John Collins was the most efficient player in the NBA. He was the best pick and roll weapon in the NBA last season. That's with a point guard that he doesn't necessarily get along with a lot of the time, although they did play together in the Pro-Ams this summer, so maybe that relationship's improving. This is a stay away for me. I like the 190 on the division. I don't love it. A lot of this is that I can't necessarily, there's too many, let me put it this way. There's not like a lot of reasons for me to bet the under. There's just a lot of reasons for me not to bet the over. I've talked a lot about the Pythagorean Win Differential. The Hawks last year were minus 1.6, which tracks. They were worse than they should have been record-wise. They should have won more games. That sounds like the Hawks. Unfortunately, those teams tend to go under the following season. I looked at bottom 5 defensive teams and how those teams do the following season. By the way, there have only been in the last 10 years 2 other teams with a win total above 45 that had a defense that was ranked below 25 over at Clean the Glass. Only 2 other teams. There was a Nuggets team and a Timberwolves team. They went 1-1 over under. But bottom 5 defensive teams overall, the following season are 20-14 to the under. So as a historical trend, the bad defensive teams tend to go under the following season. And if you say, like, doesn't that make sense that the bad teams go under? Not necessarily, because this is all baked into like what the number is, right? It's about what's the expectation. The general trend for the bad teams is they go a little bit more over than some of the middle tier teams and the high tier teams. The Hawks were a good team that was bad defensively. And so I have a lot of concerns on that end. And then there's also just, I'm worried about the whole trade thing. Everyone was very confused. They didn't make any moves. Like they want to start Onyeka Okongwu, but Clint Capella's there making a ton of money. So he's going to start. Like they wanted to clear more space for DeAndre Hunter, but Bogdanovich is still there and he's still going to get minutes. They cleared Herter and that's it. I have the same kind of concerns about chemistry, especially given the relationship of Trae Young and Dejante Murray is very strong. I'm worried that's going to alienate some of the other guys on that team that are like, hey, I've got a career too. So I have concerns there. They do have the third easiest schedule according to Positive Residual. They have a very high number of rest advantage games. a low number of back-to-backs and a low number of rest disadvantage games. So in general, they're pretty good. Trey's going to be I don't love the under again because Trey is amazing. Trey is underrated at this point for how he's talked about. 28 and 10 last year on 46, 38, 90 splits, and he can be better. Like Trae Young is a legit MVP candidate. He's one of the most impactful players in the NBA offensively. I think this team can be good. I have to stay away from it based off of those trends, but I don't blame you for taking the over.
Yeah, I think to me, the thing that would, if this goes poorly, I think Nate McMillan is done. And Nate McMillan for me is the biggest reason to take an under here. Like I don't love McMillan with this team. You talked about the chemistry and getting guys the right minutes and rotations. That's coaching. And there are certain coaches, you plug them in here, I think you would like this team a lot better because you would trust that some of those things would get solved by a Spoelstra or a Pop or a coach that you trust. McMillan is not that. I do really like, though, you mentioned Onyeka Okongwu. I think he will be starting by the end of the season. And Capella, physically, it's clearly not what it once was and is falling off. Okongwu is a really good defender. I really, if voters would actually look and give credit, I would really like Okongwu for most improved player. Don't bet it. Don't do it because he's not going to win. He's not going to score the points or do the things that we give that award for. But on the court, I think Okongwu could be a most improved type candidate in the impact that he makes with this team. And I think too, like this is not a Bulls podcast, but I'm the local Bulls guy. We've had a lot of Chicago talk on here. I underestimated last year what Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball could add to that defense to raise their floor as point of attack defenders. To me, that's what I'm seeing from Dejante Murray here. Not a good defense, not a great one, but can he just slow things down a little bit? And Collins, not a terrible defender. He's actually gotten much better in recent years. The centers are there. What do you think? What's the ceiling or range of outcomes for this defense? Can they get to about average, or is that just too far for you to see?
Yeah, if they really buckle down, they could get to 16th to 14th. I could see that happening. Like us looking at like, hey, they're top 15. And that's more than good enough. The offense will be good enough, and then they're going over. Like that's a reasonable expectation. I will say one of the problems is you talked about the Bulls comparison. The reason I liked those Bulls additions was because of the scheme that they're going to run. Capella's real value is on the switch. It used to be. He's gotten worse at that. He's not a great drop defender. So even if you have these additional wings to help defensively, which does help in drop, if your center's a weak point in drop coverage, it doesn't necessarily make up for it. So and if they switch, then Trey's in trouble. So it's like the fit isn't necessarily as clear as I liked it last year with Chicago. Sure. It's a good point about the impact of wings on a scheme defensively, but you have to have the personnel to do 4 years ago. I think Capella could be a great drop defender and this would work. I just think that Capella's got too many miles on him.